The art museum, located in a dull provincial town in New England, was terrifyingly quiet on a weekday evening. The protagonist, Jay, walked through the space, feeling a slight discomfort at how unnaturally his footsteps echoed against the cold concrete floor. The ceilings were high, and the sterile white walls seemed to stretch on forever. Rooms 1 through 5 on the first floor contained boring contemporary and pop art. What Jay had been looking for was a more intense, nerve-wracking stimulation, but it seemed he would be disappointed. He climbed the stairs to the second floor and toured the rooms in order, starting with room 6. The layout was supposed to end in a dead end at room 10. Room 10 was a gloomy space filled with abstract paintings, with several massive canvases lined up under dim lighting. Not a single other visitor was in sight. Jay's eyes caught a spot at the very back of the room, where a heavy charcoal gray blackout curtain hung down. Usually, there would be a staff-only sign there, but today was different. The curtain was drawn slightly to the side, revealing a narrow corridor stretching out into the back, one that wasn't listed on the museum map. At the entrance of the corridor, an old brass plate was screwed into the wall. With worn letters, it simply read, 11. A temporary exhibition, maybe? Jay could not resist his curiosity. He slipped past the curtain, walked down the corridor filled with freezing air, and pushed open a heavy oak door. Inside Exhibition Room 11, it was unnaturally still. Not even the faint hum of an air conditioner could be heard. Total silence. It was so quiet that a sharp, high-pitched ringing began to echo deep inside Jay's ears. The lights were dimmed to the extreme, with only a few paintings hanging on the walls brought out of the darkness by sharp spotlights. Jay approached the first painting. It had a rough, soot-smeared touch with black as its base. But the moment Jay looked closely, his breath caught. It wasn't an abstract painting. Countless squirming humans were breaking each other's bodies, piling on top of one another, and screaming at the bottom of the darkness. Every single expression was drawn with unbelievable precision. From every brushstroke, it felt as if one could almost hear throat-tearing screams. How tasteless. Feeling an unpleasant thumping in his chest, Jay moved on to the next painting. When he stood in front of it, the hairs on his entire body stood on end. What was depicted was the first-floor lobby of this very museum. There was no mistaking it. The pattern of the floor tiles, the reception desk, and a woman sitting on a bench in the lobby. Jay recognized the bright red wool coat she was wearing. Just 30 minutes ago, when Jay entered the museum, that was the woman who had been intently reading a brochure in the lobby. However, the woman in the painting was distorted with terror. Tears streamed from her wide-open eyes, and she reached out a slender hand toward the depths of the canvas, meaning toward this side, as if begging for help. Its texture, despite being paint, possessed a disturbing reality, like living skin. This is insane. Jay's instinct kicked in, and he turned around to head back immediately. But the heavy oak door that should have been behind him was gone. There was only a dark gray wall stretching on endlessly. Cold sweat ran down his back. "Hey, is anyone there?" He shouted at the top of his lungs, but his voice was swallowed by the darkness of the vast room, failing to even produce an echo. Frantically scratching and pounding against the wall as he moved forward, he saw a single canvas resting on an easel in the center of the room. That painting alone had no spotlight shining on it yet. But even in the gloom, Jay could tell exactly what was drawn there. It was the back of a single person in a dark exhibition room, turning around with a face distorted by fear. The clothing, the hairstyle, the build, every single detail perfectly matched Jay himself at this very moment. No way. Jay's lips trembled. The version of him in the painting was still unfinished. The outline was blurry, and the bare white surface of the canvas was visible at his feet. At that moment, a sound cut through the silence and reached Jay's ears. Scritch, scritch. It was the sound of a stiff hog bristle brush scratching against a dry canvas. Before Jay's staring eyes, a thick, slimy jet-black paint ran across the canvas on its own behind the painted Jay, forming an eerie shadow. The painting was updating itself in real time. Scritch, scritch. The sound wasn't just coming from the canvas in front of him. From the pitch-black darkness directly behind the real Jay's ear, the exact same sound of a brushstroke was drawing closer.